Elephants are gorgeous animals that humans admire. We've used safari trips, amusement parks, and zoos to get close to these animals for years. Some elephants are captured for their trays. They are then used to breed elephants to human standards. Fair. It's heartbreaking how many animals are in captivity, but some survive. Wild elephants rarely see humans. Large mammals are independent and avoid humans. Although we should leave wild animals alone, some situations require intervention. A baby elephant faced an obstacle that had the herd calling for help the day of the event. After arriving, rescuers knew they had to act quickly. India is known for elephant freedom. The animals live alone. Though shy, they deserve respect. The small town's residents consider the giants friends and will do anything to promote peace. Elephants are friendly but fierce when threatened. Elephants roaming free in India attract many tourists. Rarely seen. The Urilanthani River herd is safe in the dense forests. Humans left the massive creatures alone and worked their fields. The population knew not to disturb the large animals, but they tried to stay friends. The herds trekked through the forest's exhilarated residents. The elephants had a routine and knew the forest. The herd traveled daily, so the incident was normal. However, a slight route change caused a little elephant to face a life-changing challenge. If you like my videos, don't forget to like or subscribe. Thanks in advance. Before reaching the river, the herd crossed a small plot. The river is too dangerous for kids. The future was unknown. The herd's smallest calf was 25% of an elephant's size. The herd was crossing the river when a baby fell into a hole between the land and the river. The riverside hole was muddy. Despite its efforts, the baby could not escape. The herd didn't know how to help and didn't want to make things worse due to their size. How could they protect their baby? The baby's situation shocked the herd. They panicked when they saw it struggle with the slippery mud to get out of the too deep hole. The calf was too cramped to stand. How could it escape? Trying to escape the thick mud at the bottom of the hole exhausted the calf. The concrete-like mud defeated its tiny legs. The exhausted baby cried. Its wailing frightened the herd. The baby's plight broke the herd. The baby struggled to escape the hole as river water approached. To save their baby, the larger elephants acted quickly. The exhausted baby fought hard. Even though the older herd members couldn't physically help, they found a way to help their baby. They trumpeted then. The baby was exhausted and hopeless after fighting for as long as it could. Adult elephants couldn't stand seeing their baby in distress. When nothing happened, they got desperate. They had little time and a sick baby. Seeing they couldn't save a family member broke them. Elephants are smart, but they couldn't help the calf. They knew helping it escape on their own would make things worse. As minutes turned into hours, the baby's danger and imminent death increased. However, their efforts seemed to fail. Elephants travel in groups to avoid predators, a crucial survival strategy. Though they avoid certain predators, their massive size deters many other animals. Elephant families are close and valued like human families. They leave nobody behind. However, when one of them is in danger, the group will not rest until a solution is found, even if it means risking their own lives. The heat made being trapped even worse for the herd. However, one thing was clear. Despite their inability to do anything but make noise and move around, the elephants stayed together. They screamed for help because they were exhausted and in pain. Mud kept the baby elephant almost immobile. The soil hardened as the sun absorbed moisture. The calf seemed destined to die. After several hours, nothing had changed. The sun's heat was worsening the little elephant's loss of consciousness. Adult elephants circled the ravine. They couldn't help their child, but they wouldn't leave him. The herd screamed when the baby's eyes closed from exhaustion or death. The forest rang with the anguished cry. Older elephants started warning then. It was heartbreaking and deafening. This call was unavoidable if you heard it. Elephants had this. They trumpet when in danger. The trumpets blared as their youngest herd member began to die. Humans cannot easily understand the way animals speak, but whoever heard this collective cry would know that it was inspired out of love and support for their family in trouble. Bigger elephants called for help, but they couldn't help themselves. The thought of waiting around and crying seems like an impractical solution to most people, but considering their mass, it was also the only thing that they could have done. They kept yelling, refusing to stop. The baby elephant found hope when its elders trumpeted. He knew that he was loved, so he tried to be strong and clung to the small inch of hope that was left in him to survive. The young one tried again to kick out of the pit, gathering all its strength. The hole was deep. After seemingly reaching the top, the baby slumped back in and fell with a loud thump on the muddy bottom. Locals heard the noises from afar. It was initially unclear where it came from and what it meant. Others thought it was traffic noise or loud music. When the frantic braying continued, people realized it wasn't just noise. Issues arose. Strange sounds scared some locals but were hard to ignore. Some ran toward the noise to discover its source and cause. It came from the forest a mile away. Brave souls ran into the trees. Sound increased as they approached. One human had started to recognize it as a call for help, but they still pushed forward cautiously. When they reached the river, the strange noises intensified. It was too far into the woods to retreat. Despite fear, they had to proceed. They suspected an elephant herd, but didn't know why. Wild animals. Could humans approach safely? They had a million questions. The elephants appeared to be surrounded by cats. The locals knew they could be killed in seconds if caught, but the cries were so loud they had to find out why. Elephants rarely screamed, so curiosity overcame fear. As more residents joined the first group to investigate, the frontliners gained courage to get closer. They were all in danger, but they kept trying to get close. On any other day, locals would never approach these majestic and dangerous animals in the wild. This was unusual. Elephants were surprisingly calm. They visibly relaxed when they saw humans. Despite being smarter than animals, no one knew what to do. They also stared at the herd, trying to understand. They saw an upset baby in the hole. Humans were smaller than elephants, but they could not lift the weak baby out of the pit. They requested assistance because they couldn't lift the baby. The authorities would have the equipment to free the calf. Locals returned to town for help. The little elephant was almost immobile by nightfall. It lay silently in the hole, waiting to die. By now, the herd and some locals were outside the hole monitoring the situation. Time was running out. Headlights finally appeared, giving the locals hope. Even the older elephants knew help was coming. Rescuers arrived. The locals cleared the path for the team, and some elephants started acting strangely when they saw more people. They were calm. Everyone, human and animal, knew help had arrived and wanted to save the baby. Wildlife and forest officers arrived. They got closer to assess the situation. They asked locals to move to the side for a better view. Elephants were gently led away from the hole. After seeing the baby elephant, they realized they couldn't fix it alone. It required larger equipment. One officer then returned to town to request more support. The issue appeared unsolvable that day. The local authorities had to call for help from better-equipped agencies before entering the forest because a trapped elephant was unusual in this part of India. Again, the baby elephant waited long. Everyone decided to stay with the herd as it got darker. Humans could wait patiently if animals could. Dawn came, and a new day began. The sun had risen, so those waiting could only wait longer. A distant roar was heard. Help arrived as vehicles approached. They brought a huge excavator this time. The challenge persisted with the right machines. How do you rescue a tired baby elephant from a 24-hour hole? The larger rescue team started at 7 a.m. The older elephants seemed restless and excited. With the elephants alive and hopeful again, the rescuers were even more determined to finish quickly. No matter what, they would rescue the baby. They'd succeed. Villagers naturally flocked to the site after hearing about government rescue teams. Rescuers and volunteers kept curious bystanders at bay. Clearing and handling the site was critical. People's curiosity couldn't interfere with this sensitive mission. First, the baby elephant they rescued weighed 400-600 lbs. Human hands and strength cannot handle it. Despite the equipment, the calf's health was a concern. Millimeters counted. The thick, dry mud nearly immobilized the baby elephant. The rescuers were extra cautious when moving the excavator. Even experts could make mistakes. They tried to dig the baby out without endangering it. They dug around the hole to expand their working space. They risked harming the calf if they dug exactly where it was. After widening the hole, the elephant had to be removed. The sensitive job would take several more hours. The locals thought they could save the elephant by lifting it out of the ground. The experts knew that excavation was never easy, especially in this situation. Even the older elephants voluntarily stepped aside for the rescue team and machine. The equipment shook and made noise, but none of the elephants around reacted negatively. All agreed to protect the herd's youngest member. Create a small path for the baby to crawl out. This is difficult. The excavators had to be careful not to let the dugout mud go back into the hole. Their efforts would be wasted otherwise. They had to dig mud inch by inch, slowly. The excavating machine created enough space for the calf to move, so the locals could help. Stronger villagers monitored the soil where the machine dug. All worked to save the baby elephant. The calf's struggle to survive inspired them all. Wildlife officers appreciated local assistance. They assigned someone to give directions because they knew they needed the community's strength despite their equipment. Help was great, but they had to act carefully. One mistake could ruin the operation and increase risk. Others helped rescuers by providing food and drinks. All the noise and vibrations the machine was making were a disturbance for sure, but the wild elephants had appeared to stay calm in the heat of it all. No elephants had left by the second day of the rescue. The pack's unity while waiting for their child's safe return inspired people to move forward. The machine broke while everyone was working. When the vibrations stopped, their hearts raced in the deafening silence. Issues arose. The engine refused to restart after several attempts by the operator. Nearly solved. How could this happen now? Excavator smoke indicated overheating. It gave up after hours of digging a wider hole around the baby elephant. Luckily, a local engine expert offered to inspect the machine. Given the urgency, he had to act quickly. The mud-trapped creature's clock ticked. The excavator broke, forcing a temporary halt. While adrenaline was high, people were clearly exhausted, so it may have been an opportune breakdown. Locals fed hard-working men. The baby had to wait again. After realizing what happened, the older elephants trumpeted again. To ensure the baby elephant was still holding on, rescuers had to get closer and feed and water it. Thankfully, it refused to quit. No shortcut existed for the difficult task. After an hour, the engine issue was still unresolved. After another volunteer suggested equipment repairs, the elephant started making strange noises again. The other volunteers dug quickly but carefully while the mechanics worked on the excavator. The others had to calm the elephants who were braying and pacing. Some humans worried that desperate elephants would attack them, but they kept working because a precious life depended on them. The small crowd cheered when the excavator was running again. The mission resumed, and the baby elephant will be saved. Everybody felt energized and alive again with this glimmer of hope. A hole around the little elephant was scrapped. They attempted a trench. This would help push the calf to solid ground. The rescuers also worried about the herd's reaction since they were touching the baby. The elephants also made it clear that they wanted the mission over. The older ones again made loud noises heard miles away. This increased pressure on workers, but their enthusiasm and excitement doubled. The arduous rescue mission ended the following afternoon. There they were, wildlife officers, local volunteers, a huge machine, and a herd of elephants, all happy to see the baby elephant take its first steps outside the pit where it had been trapped for over 2 days. Human, animal, and machine determination made an impossible mission possible. Locals and wild animals had never interacted before. Before this, they rarely interacted. However, seeing the baby elephant slowly but determinedly walk toward his family filled everyone with joy. The mother elephant cared for the baby. Stunning. The herd suddenly cried out in appreciation and joy, not sadness and fear. The humans watched as the older and larger elephants circled the youngest and showed affection. Then they realized animals could love each other like humans. As the herd approached the river, the older ones protected the young one. They patiently led it across. After 2 harrowing days, the herd looked proud and happy. Some locals cried as the herd slowly returned to the forest with their baby. Everyone was crying with joy, and nobody wanted to leave. They all stayed put. They had never felt such warmth from wild animals before. The baby elephant seemed to enjoy the attention from the herd. The experience was agonizing, but its family had never left, not even eating or drinking until they saw their baby safe. When their youngest member began to tire, the bigger ones stepped in. Elephants often crossed rivers. They did this so often. After what happened to their baby, they knew they had to be extra careful. The parents constantly watched their calf, which was between the larger ones. Every step was carefully planted. The locals felt like they were watching a show, so they stayed until the herd was gone. Something amazing happened when the group crossed the river. Wild elephants seemed to be saying goodbye to humans. They stopped to say thanks. Locals knew they would never forget this simple act. It was memorable. Wonder and awe continued. Elephants lined up. After that terrifying experience, humans thought they were resting. Each elephant in the herd raised its trunk one by one. Happening? Animals showing gratitude to humans was a surprise. The trunks trumpeted when raised. Rarely seen. Wild elephants saluted them. Some spectators were in tears and speechless. The crowd laughed and congratulated each other on their success. They knew the community worked hard to save the baby elephant. Massive animals saluted pricelessly. The grateful elephants marched on. Everyone knew that day would be remembered forever. Villagers saw the wild elephant herd shrinking. They entered the forest. Nobody knew when they would be that close to the wild beast again. The locals stayed across the river until the last elephant disappeared. Their hearts were full after a long rescue mission. Worth every second. Over half of Asian elephants live in India. Indians love these animals, which are everywhere. Asia is huge, so imagine how many elephants live in this humble country. 20% of domesticated elephants run local businesses. Indians care about animals for this reason. Elephants help the country's culture and religion as well as their own. Perhaps that's why the locals couldn't ignore the massive beast's cries for help. After finishing, wildlife officials thanked volunteers. The officials were pleased that ordinary people helped them and the poor animal without hesitation. The mood was upbeat despite some of them missing work. They shook hands before going home. The locals knew they would tell their children about it for years because it was rare. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in the next video.